What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I've got a really good video for you today. I did the same thing I did with the primaries yesterday, only with SMGs. Ranked all of them for season 6, and also did some weighting this time, unlike last time, to try to make the expected guns come out on top and give almost like a quantifiable rank to the different SMGs. So I'm pretty excited about this. I think it's a really interesting video. Another thing I'm doing, I have background music, so drop a comment, let me know if you like that or if you don't like that. I just wanted to try it out, see what people thought. But as always, if you like the content, drop a sub, a like, and a comment. Help us out with the YouTube algorithm, help me keep growing, keep the website up to date and funded. But let's jump into it and we'll talk about the best SMGs in season 6. All right, so today I'm going to go through all of the SMGs that I think are the top SMGs in the game right now. I'll give you guys the ranks for different game modes. So iron trials, solos, duos, trios, quads. That's mostly just gonna be based off damage per mag, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. And then tomorrow I'm going to do the same video only for sniper supports. So these are mostly like aggressive SMGs, so not really SMGs ranked how you would rank them for sniper support. So we will do that tomorrow, and then the day after that I'm going to try to do like a top loadouts for the season kind of video where I talk about combining all these different videos I've made the last 3 days, telling you what are the best guns and how to complement different weapons and perks and things like that. So that's kind of my plan for all this. But let's talk about these SMGs. So the top SMGs, in my opinion, are the AK-74U, AUG 556, Bullfrog, CX9, ISO, PPSH, Cold War MP5, Modern Warfare MP5, OTS, MP7, and the DMR. So DMR has ridiculous TTKs. We're going to talk about all that, but easily wins both up close TTK and at range TTK. So each one of these columns, I've included what I think are the most important stats for SMGs, especially aggressive SMGs. So recoil is not super important. But I included it just because it is something that you have to deal with all the time if somebody happens to be a little bit too far away. So it's still an important thing for an SMG. TTK less than 8.9 meters. This was just an arbitrary number I picked. Kind of split the TTK into two different ranges, the less than 8.9 and then the 9 to 15 meter range. That's both of those are where you're trying to use your SMGs the most. Occasionally you'll get caught outside that 15 meter range, but the way I've split this, it pretty much captures those kind of fights too in the 9 to 15 meter, just because there seems to be like almost two different ranges of SMGs in this game where they kind of all break at either like 9 meters or they all break at like 15 meters. So there's kind of like two different categories of SMGs. So those two ranges kind of capture exactly what I was trying to capture with this comparison. Fire rate's important. Fire rate flinches your enemy and makes recoil feel a little more controllable. Damage per mag is always important, especially in, iron trials and quads and trios and stuff like that. So I've included that. Sprint speed is really important, just for getting around the map and doing bunny hops around corners and things. Your sprint speed affects all of that. So sprint speed's a massively important stat for an SMG, especially up close. ADS movement speed, again, is very important, just so you can, while you're ADS and moving, you can be moving faster. It's pretty self-explanatory. ADS time is very important as well. When you're seeing someone and they see you at the same time, which happens very often up close, you need to be able to ADS faster. And I've included ADS times in all these TTK numbers, again, because you're up close. And those are the situations where it matters, where you both see each other. ADS is super, super important there. And that's why I included in this, because those are the times that are like dangerous. If you see them first, ADS doesn't matter. So it's not really worth not including it, because only the times where you could die is it important. So that's why I included it. Sprint to fire time, very important. Obviously there's not much differentiation here. We'll talk about that as we get into it. And then hip fire also is important if you're someone that likes hip fire. So again, this sheet's going to be shareable, and I've scaled these with weighting factors this time. So basically it takes, so like for the AK-74U, if it has a 3 ranking for hip fire, it takes that and multiplies it by this, the weighting factor. So it gets a 6 instead of a 3. And I will share this sheet so you can make a copy and change these weighting factors for how you like to play the game and get your own rankings for these guns. But let's go through the columns now, and I'll talk about how these guns ranked out. I'm going to try to keep this video under 10 minutes. I'm trying to get better about having shorter videos just in general. It's just better to get new people onto the channel. And sometimes I just ramble too much. So I'm just trying to be a little more concise here. So recoil, again, not super important, but the guns that have the best recoil, definitely MP7, PPSH, ISO, Bullfrog, and AK-74U all have very manageable recoil. I put DMR in last just because I am terrible at single fire guns. That's just me, so you can change this if you want when you get the sheet. TTKs, again, I told you I split these out in terms of different ranges because there's kind of two different groups of SMGs. So you can see the top SMGs in terms of TTK. DMR is first in both ranges. It has ridiculous TTKs, but there's a little star next to the DMR. That is dependent on hitting one headshot. So you have to hit a headshot with a DMR to get these TTKs. All these were based off of including ADS time with my advanced TTK calculator, including, you know, like 11% headshots and 7% neck shots. And I've talked about that a bunch, but it's very accurate. So the DMR has the best TTKs if you hit those headshots. Obviously, OTS, MP5s, both MP5s, and the AUG have fantastic TTKs. I was surprised the MP7 is actually really, really close to like the Cold War MP5. I actually say those tied. Using that advanced TTK calculator, they came out basically the same in that first damage range. And then the second damage range, obviously OTS and the MP5s are much, much worse. They have a huge drop off right at about 9 meters. So they come close to the back of the pack. And then the AUG still up top. DMR is still in first. MP7 still does really well out to about 15 meters. PPSH, ISO, CX9 all did really well as well. Fire rate. So fire rate, this is not a super important thing, which is why I have it weighted at 0.5. But fire rate, CX9 has a fantastic fire rate. OTS, PPSH, the MP5s, MP7 all have really good fire rates. Damage per mag. Again, this is really important. I'm not really going to cover this. It is what it is. You guys know how this works. It's just damage times the mag size, and this uses my scaled factors as well. So you can look at those and decide how you feel about the different guns. But a couple standouts, obviously the AUG 60 round is huge. PPSH 71 round is huge. Couple of ones that came out small. The ISO and CX9 had really small damage per mag, same as the OTS. I used the 50 round mag on the MP7 just to keep the mobility up a little bit with sleight of hand, so that's why it's 6. It would probably be like 5 if it was the 60 round mag, but 60 round mag just kills your mobility. Sprint speed. So obviously Cold War guns, I covered this a few days ago. There's a big discrepancy between sprint speed on the Cold War SMGs and the Modern Warfare SMGs, and it's a big bummer. If they just balanced that out, things would be in a much better spot. So basically the PPSH, the OTS, Cold War MP5, Bullfrog, and AK-74U are the Cold War SMGs on this list, and they have obviously dramatically better sprint speeds. So I tried to scale these based on like what they actually were. AUG 5.56 with 60 round is painfully slow, but even the Modern Warfare guns are just really slow by themselves without anything hurting it. So that's why these are scaled so aggressively towards the Modern Warfare guns being worse, because it's like they're like 6.4, 6.5 meters per second, whereas these Cold War guns are over 7 meters per second. So it's a really big, very noticeable difference when you're playing the game. ADS movement speeds are much closer between the games. So PPSH comes out on top here again. The ISO, CX9 have great ADS movement speeds. The OTS has fantastic ADS movement speed. Couple honorable mentions would be the Bullfrog, Modern Warfare MP5, and MP7. DMR is actually pretty close as well there. ADS times are very important. So the PPSH these are all with full builds, by the way. The recommended builds are down at the bottom. These are all based on my recommended builds. So the stats are included in this for how you would have to build them based on the attachments. So like the Bullfrog, for example, gets a bunch of extra attachments because it doesn't need an optic and it doesn't need a magazine for most situations. So it has really good sprint speed and ADS movement speed because of the attachments. Like it doesn't have that by default, but you can build it that way, and that's how I've built it below. PPSH wins ADS. MP5 for Modern Warfare gets second. CX9 gets third with my build. So CX9 is actually looking pretty decent. TTK in the first range is not great. Recoil is pretty hard to control. Damage per mag is really, really low. Sprint speed is really bad because it's a Modern Warfare gun, but everywhere else the CX9 is looking really good right now. Sprint to fire. So basically what I said for this is all the different SMGs have the same sprint to fire. Very close. They're not the same. They're very, very close. It's like 10 or 15 milliseconds here or there based on the different guns. I said the PPSH was a little bit slower, and that's because it has open bolt delay. So technically the time from sprinting to firing with an open bolt delay gun is going to be longer because of that open bolt delay. The actual sprint to fire time is not longer, but it includes that open bolt delay in terms of when your bullet will actually, fire and hit the target. So PPSH a little bit slower than the other SMGs, and then the DMR obviously is a DMR. It doesn't have good sprint to fire times. It's not an SMG, so it came in last. And then in order to scale this appropriately, I just multiplied it by 3. So this whole row is weighted by 3, and that's because saying that this is just a 3 only gives it 1 point worse than the DMR, or one point worse than the PPSH, which is not accurate. It's quite a bit worse. So I scaled it up a little bit. Hip fire. There are like 4 groups here. So the first group is the small hipfire hitbox, small hipfire cone modern warfare guns. So that would be the MP7, ISO, and CX9. And then the regular modern warfare SMG hipfire cone would be the MP5 for modern warfare, the 2 AUGs. And then Cold War SMGs are a little bit worse than that. So then the rest, the 3s are the Cold War SMGs. And then DMR again, obviously has terrible. I mean, really it's worse than 4, but I scaled this up by multiplying by 2 again. So these are, because it only gets to 4, in order to make it fair with the other columns, I multiplied the whole row by 2. So yeah, that's a quick summary of all the columns there. Let's talk about how these actually came out in terms of top guns. All right, so I'm not going to go through all these columns again. You can look at it. You can go open the spreadsheet yourself. I'm going to share it in the description down below. Basically, the only difference between all these columns is how the damage per mag is weighted. I know there's other things that could be included in that and for different modes, but the most important thing between the different modes is probably damage per mag. So I just scaled them based on damage per mag. Basically, for Iron Trials, you can see PPSH comes out on top by a pretty significant margin. It was really good everywhere. Had fantastic mobility, huge damage per mag, good TTKs, and good longer range TTKs as well. And it's also very accurate. So the PPSH makes sense, comes out on top for Iron Trials. Followed by the AUG 5.56 60 round. Again, that's because I've weighted the damage per mag so high, and the AUG with the 60 round mag has huge damage per mag. It also has ridiculously good TTKs in Iron Trials, which I do think, I wouldn't necessarily say it's the second best gun for Iron, or the second best SMG for Iron Trials. This ranking system still needs tweaking, but it is great based on those TTKs and damage per mag. Third place, AK-74U, again, huge damage per mag. That's a really big benefit. Bullfrog, very big damage per mag. Comes in basically, there's this middle pack where the MP5s, the OTS, MP7, and Bullfrog all kind of sit in the middle there. And that's because they all have good TTKs, but really low damage per mag, except Bullfrog. Bullfrog has bad TTKs, but really high damage per mag. MP7, really good everywhere, just doesn't have the damage per mag that it needs for Iron Trials. And then let's just go to the other extreme. So solos rank, this is where damage per mag does not matter at all. And as you'd expect, the OTS comes out on top with my ranking system, followed by the PPSH. PPSH is just so good everywhere, like I said, that it's going to come out on top everywhere. So it's in second here. The 2 MP5s probably should be ranked a little bit higher here based on my scaling. I need to tweak this stuff a little bit. I am going to add this to the site, by the way. I'm going to add a premium feature where you can basically rank everything just like I'm doing in this video for yourself and come out with rankings for every gun in the game for every type of situation. So we got the MP7 and the CX9 actually coming in at 3rd or 4th in the rankings for solos, so that's really surprising to me. MP7 and CX9 both have really good TTKs and range. They have smaller damage per mags though, so that's why they're looking better over here. But across the board, they do have a lot of really good stats. So I think I was shocked at how good the TTKs were on the MP7 when you actually, do that advanced TTK calculator and compare it to these other guns where some of the shots hit different parts of the body. Comes out great. So I'm going to try the MP7 a lot more than I was before. I'm going to try that 50 round mag with sleight of hand. But back of the pack, DMR is back of the pack in all of these, and that's just because it has really bad SMG properties, sprint speed, mobility, ADS movement speed, things like that, sprint to fire time, all of that's really bad, but it does have the best TTKs. If you hit those headshots, nothing even comes close to the TTKs of the DMR right now. And then back of the pack for solos would be kind of like the Bullfrog, the AUGs, and the AK-74U. They're just not great anywhere. They're kind of okay, but they're just not great. So I really think it came out pretty good. My ranking system came out pretty good. I'd like to see the MP5s be better for solos. They should definitely be better than this for the solos. So I need to change up the ranks a little bit, but overall, I think I was pretty good here. But yeah, I'm not going to talk about the recommended builds. They're all on the sheet. If you just scroll down here, I hid them right now, but if I unhide these columns, you're going to see that all these recommended builds are down here. I've split it into 2 groups. I've got recommended builds for people who only ADS and don't ever hipfire. I have optic recommendations for PC and console. And then I also have broken it up into hipfire builds. So these are hipfire builds if you're someone who hipfires all the time. These would be the builds for you, and this is without optics, because most of the time you don't use an optic on a hipfire build because you're not ADSing. So I've got all these top builds in here. I think this is one of my favorite videos I've ever made, to be honest. I went really in depth here and feel like I got pretty good ranks out for how these guns actually compete. I didn't make it to my 10-minute video mark that I wanted, but I feel like there was just too much to talk about to do that this time. Again, I'll have that sniper sport video out tomorrow, but I hope you guys found this really interesting and useful. Again, the link to this spreadsheet's down below. I'm going to put everything on there. This is the same spreadsheet as yesterday's video, so the primaries tab's right here. And then you have the SMGs on this one. I've also put comments on here for certain attachments that people might be like, why would you pick that? Because I get asked that all the time. Why'd you pick that? Why'd you pick that? So I put comments on there explaining things that I think I'll get asked about. But I hope you guys found this interesting. I hope you found it useful. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I will see you tomorrow.